Good day, everybody. This is Seth, and as promised, I'm going to walk everybody through the reports configuration. So, we had obviously done a session for this, and it didn't work out that we're able to record the session. There was some issue with Zoom, so I'm taking another step. I'm going to try and go through all that's necessary for you guys to be able to configure your subjects and everything to get your school ready for reports at the end of the term. So, of course, navigate to your SmartTerm portal and log in just to get things started off. And although we're talking about the reports, which are going to be in the reports module, there are a couple different steps that are necessary to actually get configuration of the reports done. Now, as of this moment, because we've actually gone over some of the additional functionality like configuring assignment categories in subjects, I'm going to assume that you've kept up with all the other webinars so far and you understand how to do some of those core functions and take things from there. So to get started off, of course, you have your subjects, and the subjects do have some level of configurability that you can do. Right? Within a subject, we have different assignment categories that can be created. We also have these strands that allow you to break down a subject another way. And so we'll assume that these things have been configured, and that affects, what's being captured and displayed on the reports and how things are weighted. Now, keep in mind that anything you edit for the subject within the assignment categories only affects the coursework or term grade component of the subject. There are also still options for the exam component of the subject, which you'll understand how those weights get accrued towards everything once we get into the report configuration. So if you're not sure about how to set your assignment categories, we did a webinar on the different configurations when we went going through the grade book and going through the subjects and classrooms. So keep an eye out for that as well. And of course, we have the strands. The other piece that I wanted to point out is that, anything within a subject really deals with quantitative aspects of the subject. So you have a term grade, which is based on percentage generation. You have an exam grade, which is once again based on percentages that you'll be adding in, right? But there are also assessments in our system, which of course, by assessments, I don't mean just an assignment. We had a tutorial on assignments. What I mean from SmartTerm terminologies, an assessment has to deal with the non-quantitative piece of assessing a student over the course of the year. So this really varies depending on what level you're at, but if you are at the kindergarten level or preschool level, you may not have a single percentage grade across the school. You'd only have what we call assessments, these qualitative assessments that you capture against a student. So a student report may look like, even for things like numeracy and their social skills and everything, you choose that from a set of drop downs, and we use the assessments module to create that. I did show how this was done in our webinar that covered some of the subjects and gradebook configuration things, because we can tie assessments to a subject as well. As you can see here, I created one for Spanish, but I'll go ahead and just quickly rehash it. So going into the assessments module, you'll be able to create what we call domains, right? So if I wanted to add a domain here, I could create one. Now, once again, the assessment could be tied to a specific subject. So it could be something like fluency in a language, and you want to grade a student's spoken Spanish or written Spanish or reading level or things like that against a drop down pretty much. And you can create that. Or it could be not tied to a subject and be something more like social skills, right? Or even for the kindergarten level students, maybe something like their behavioral development, right? So let's see, behavioral development. Let's say we have a kinder, maybe grade one school, because I created a grade one classroom before. Let's say we tie that assessment back here. So the sections I'll create it for is maybe pre-K, kinder, and grade one for the purposes of my demo right now. Right, and I don't have to put anything in description, but I'll put TBD just to make it, it's required. So I'll put TBD there just to fill the space. So that's how you create a domain. And once you create a domain, you can add that domain to a classroom or you can add it to a subject. But of course, within the domain, you still have to add the individual assessments. So let's say for behavioral development, right? We want to create one that is like the student responds to their name, right? So when you say a student's name, they actually respond to you or acknowledge you, right? Actually, maybe let's make a simpler one be acknowledge. Well, let's quickly responds. Responds to their name, right? And we choose a basic drop down. And let's say that the categories for here, it could be excellent or bad, but let's say it's never, sometimes, often, always, right? I'll put something in for description right now. You can get more details there as to why this assessment is being taken or anything like that. I click save. Just confirm that I'm capturing my audio as well. Right, so that's one aspect of behavioral development that I want. The nice thing with the system is obviously that has its own scale for answering. I said never, often, sometimes, always, but you could add another assessment within that same domain and it has its own set of potential responses, right? So let's say it says their own name, right? When asked, what is your name? Right? And then I can say in this case it's clearly somewhat and no response. Right? I can save that. So now I actually have two different things within a single domain, and I can create as many domains as I want to. So I have some flexibility there. That's how you create an assessment. You can then go and you can tie an assessment to any classroom, right? And that will show up against classroom assessments. You just choose, you navigate to the classroom, you choose which classroom you're tying it to. You go to the assessments tab, you go to the domain list, you choose the assessment and you click add domain, right? And that adds that assessment against the domain, which we'll see once we actually look at the reports module a little later after we do the configurations. Likewise, you can add that assessment against a specific subject as well. So I gave the example of a Spanish assessment that we created. So let me just remove it. But you go to the subjects, you go to, let's say, Spanish, right? You created the assessment the same way. That's why I didn't bother creating another one. But you go to the subject. The only thing is you may not see an assessments tab against that subject. So you click on the gear icon, you click edit, you go to assignment assessments option, you choose enable if there are subject-based assessments, and you click save. And then the assessments tab will show up. Once again, you choose the assessment. From the drop down, you click add domain, the assessment gets added, right? And so the two items that I created is grasp the J sound, grasp the L, double L sound, right? And that's it. You add the assessments against it. So those are some of the things that you may have to, ensure that you have against the report before you capture it. Now there are other pieces here as well. In the schools, we have these badges. So if you wanted to create a prefect badge, you could, right? You go to the badges module, you create badge. Let's say this one is head boy. Select, let's just say white for now. Select an icon, put something in like that, click save. Badge is created, and once a badge is created, you can go to the users and you can add a user from the drop down list. Let's say Jack is the student. You go here and then you quickly record, or sorry, I was just confirming if my recording was being taken. You quickly add the user and there it's recorded against the report, right? So there are other things there. It really just depends on how far along your school is and what you want to capture. But we need to ensure all of those things are captured. And let's say you've set up everything, the groups are there. So the extracurricular activities for the student. Once again, you can create the group, let's say football, for example. Right? And we add the student into the football group. And whatnot, and just figure it out, right? There are behavioral pieces where you can create different behavior types. We'll do a whole tutorial on the behavioral piece. For now, we're not focusing so much on capturing behavior immediately. We want your schools to one, get your report configured, and then we'll do tutorial videos. Maybe we'll have to give a dedicated day to things like behavior, just like we did for like assignment creation and whatnot, right? But you capture everything that's created in the system and you go to the gear icon on the top right, and you'll see the configurations there, and you focus on this, the report configurations, right? Now, within the report configurations, assuming the relevant modules are on, so for example, I showed you badges a while ago. Well, if you wanted the badges to actually show up on the end of term report, then you have to have that module on. If it's off and you needed to add things like head boy, head girl badges and prefect badges, of course, you have to turn them on, you create the badge, you add the students into the badge, right? Similarly, there are other things that may or may not be captured. Right. The main priority for us right now, of course, capture attendance in the system, capture the grades in the system, and then you can configure the reports, and that will capture the grades, and you set up the weights and everything, and then that ensures that the report's actually generated. Right, so you go to the report configurations tab. You'll see here that there are many options that you need to fill out. So I'll talk through those really quickly. Of course, there's capture the extracurricular activities or the groups. You can have that off or you can turn it on, and that you want it to show up on the report card, right? So you can capture groups and have it not show up on the report card. And that may be for analytics purposes. So you want to run analytics on extracurricular activities, but your particular report card as a school doesn't necessarily need to show the extracurricular activities on a report. Or maybe on the first term report, it doesn't show up, but the third term final year report, you do show extracurricular activities, right? This is where, as I mentioned, after that initial week, everything starts to kind of deviate to the specifics of your school, how you operate your school, what's necessary, and the reports is one of the biggest places where that will show up. So you can have extracurricular activities on or off, you can have badges on or off and captured, right? Commenting, right? So this is where you choose if you want to have comments on the end of term report, and there's a lot of options there. You could first of all have it off, or you could have it on. With the comments, we allow two modes of entering a comment. One is free-form comments, which is a text box where a teacher can fill out anything, right? Assuming the teacher is taking comments for a subject, teacher is taking the class comments, right? So rather than doing one for each individual subject, you're just giving a comment for the student in the classroom. And then there's also the ability for maybe grade coordinators to take comments, and even the principal to take comments. So there's a couple different levels, and these buttons allow that, right? You can enable comments as a subject teacher against specific subjects. Whichever teacher teaches the subject is the one who makes a comment. You can enable for the class teacher, the grade coordinator, the principal. You can allow for drop downs. So I mentioned that the free form, the text box, was one type of comments. The other is that you can actually populate a list of comments into the system, and those then pool in, and when the teacher is entering the comment, they can click on that. Now we allow both even, right? So the teacher could have a free form text box and they still click from things and add that, or some schools want to limit it. They want the teachers to only use the comments that are in a pre-filled, pre-vetted list of comments. They can't add anything free. In that case, they would disallow the free form comments, right? So you have some flexibility there. You choose things how you want to. There's something for a principal signature, so you can add that in as well. You choose whether you want to capture assessments. Are you doing assessments against a classroom? Are you doing it against a subject? We do have something for personalized assessments, for individual student assessments, like an individual education plan, particularly seen in special needs students, but that's not within the scope of this initial project. We'd have to figure out with the ministry if that's a piece that may be included in the future, but if you do, that's there. And shirt and report card. The attendance. Do you want to capture the attendance from the system? Now, ideally, if you're using the system from day one, as we're working to get all the schools to do, then yeah, you get to the end of the term, you never have to worry about attendance anymore, because the attendance is just being captured in the system, right? It's as easy as them just coming in every day, taking their attendance. When report time comes, the teachers never have to sit down with a register and tally up numbers or anything like that again. Even the subject teachers, they never have to tally up anything again. All of that data is being captured. There is an override there, which means that, the totals are entered at the end of the term. That's only really used for like emergency situations, right? So for example, you get to the end of the term and maybe your teachers, for whatever reason, something happened and the teachers weren't able to take attendance that term, then they could enter the totals, right? Generally, that will be off. You can choose to capture behavior stuff. So as I mentioned, you could capture the behavioral records. You can choose to show it on report cards. Here, for my demo purposes, I created, detention type in my behavior module, and I have that being captured, right? If I have some time at the end of this, I may quickly just show you a glance at how the behavior module works as well. Now, here's where it's important. You choose which aspects of the grades are being captured. Now, in our system, we have a separate component for coursework or the term grade, something separate for tests and exams. However, based on what we understand for St. Vincent, we're not going to use this test grade school. All schools in St. Vincent have a term grade, which is going to be the coursework grade, and the test may be incorporated into the coursework grade as an assignment category, right? So we covered that when we were talking about the different, assignment categories within a subject. That was in the other tutorial. Please feel free to watch that as well if you need to catch up. But when we do those tests, if they're just in an assignment category, they're weighted and everything, and you still just get one term grade, and it's easy peasy like that. And then of course the final exam grade. And we'll want to capture the final exam grade, and for the strands, if we wanted to do exam grade by that, we could have that, or we could turn it off, right? You can keep it off if you need to. You can override the exam grade. So if you just wanted to enter the grade, by the end of the term, as I mentioned, in an ideal situation, when you get to the end of the term, 90% of the reports will be done for you. You may just be entering a final exam grade and maybe one or two things here or there, right? But you can keep the override on, or you can keep it off if you want to actually do the exam through SmartTerm. Maybe you have a multiple choice or auto-graded component to the final exams, and then in that case, you would keep the override off because advanced assignments can't be enabled, right? And you want to show that on report, of course. Do you want to display the subject teacher's name? Yes or no, right? Let's leave it on so we can see it on the report. And then finally, the final grade tally that we definitely care about, right? So if you're capturing the final grade tally, that will show a final grade. You choose to show it on the report. Now, there are some options there, right? You could, for example, show a letter grade instead of a percentage for the final grade. Or you can choose whether decimal places will be there or if numbers will be rounded, right? You can disallow certain things like exemptions and omittance for things like the exam component if you have overrides on, right? Some schools really don't want to allow that, but it's up to you, right? You can allow grade entering by weight instead of percentage. So right now, if you're entering the final exam grade, you would enter the percentage. But if you have this button on and the exam is worth 70 out of 100% of the grade, right? So the weights are basically coursework is 30 and exam is 70. Rather than entering 100%, you would enter how much it is out of that 70, right? So the student got 70 out of 70, for example. There's some stuff there for autosave, but generally speaking, like I said, we have the save button. Always remember to click the save button, right? Once again, you can choose to show the weight instead of the percentage. So on the report card, do you want to show term grade, exam grade, and then if the term grade is 30% of the grade, right, the weight is 30/70, do you want it to show like 27/70, and they add that together and they say, oh, the student's final grade is 97%? Or do you want to show 100% in term grade, 100% in exam grade, and then that's 97? Or, or sorry, 100%, right? Or in the example that I gave with 97%, here I was talking about 27 and 100, which would actually average out to about 98.5, right? In that case, would you instead show 97% and 100%, which once again would average out to about 98.5, right? So that's the kind of difference in showing a weight versus a percentage. And then, of course, there's something for a grade review tool, which I'll show in the reports module what that means. But basically, it allows the teachers to click a button to submit their grades, right? So if as a school you say, okay, reports are out Friday, September 29, today is the 27th, is the last day for you to submit your grades by, then once you set that deadline and you have this review tool on, the teachers in the system will click a submit button and you'll see that they submitted it when, basically. So if they submitted after that time, you'd have a timestamp, right? Now the weights for the final grade, as I mentioned, this is the term grade. How much is that towards the overall final grade just for that term, right? Now this may be atypical for how you think about things right now, because from what I understand in St. Vincent, the final grade is really at the end of the year, right? So you don't give a final grade at the end of the term, but it's just, they get whatever they get in coursework for the term, they get whatever they get for exams in the term, and then in term 2 they just have a term grade, and then in term 3 they have once again a term grade and an exam grade, and you get a final grade for that. That's new for us, but we of course added that functionality in that case. You would probably have the final grade off, and instead you'd keep on the final average across terms, right? So you set this button on and you set the custom weights across the terms, right? And so from my understanding, the breakdown is 10, 10, 10, 20, 50. So in term 1, term grade is 10, exam grade is 20. In term 2, term grade is 10, there's no exam. And in term 3, term grade is 10, exam is 50. And that's how you get that final grade. Well, how you configure that is right here. You have the final year average across the terms, capture final average for the year, use custom weights across the term, right? And it's in term 1. Of course, I only have 2 terms here for my demo purposes, so bear with me. Term 1, this is 10, this would be 0, this is 20, right? And let's just would add in 2 more terms, and you would have summer term here. Let's pretend this is summer term, and this would be another 10, and then you have Easter term, and this is 10, and then you would have summer term. Let's pretend this is summer term, right? And that would be 10 and 50. And so you'd have your 10, 10, 10, 20, 50 kind of breakdown, right? And you just put 0 in the test spot because we're not using that across St. Vincent. And that would be how you'd kind of set your final year average across the terms, and that would be how we'd capture that functionality, right? I could leave it on, but for my demo purposes, obviously, because I only have 2 terms here, let's just say this is something like that, right? And then I have my class ranking. Do you want to have on the overall rank across a class? That may or may not be required for your school. You can force the order of subjects on the report card. So you pick the subject area and you put the order. Up to you if you want to have that on or not. We have these progress reports that you can see throughout the term. And then that's really just, if you turn it on, then you get another option in the reports module, and you will be able to see that. So you'll see there's something here for progress reports, but what we're focusing on today is the report card. All right. Let me close that out. Now you can add a disclaimer on the report, and I put this is a test here for the disclaimer so you guys can see it. You can add additional comments. I put this is another test here so you guys can see it. And then finally, how you do things normally is enable printing would be set to off, right? Enable printing is off because as the term goes, the admins can still go to the reports module. They can see how things are looking. Once you're ready to have the teachers enter the grades and they'll kind of want to see what their final um, report looks like, they can enable printing here. And, you can choose to display zeros on report cards, or if a student gets a zero, it doesn't display, it's just blank. It's up to you. You can choose the decimals on the report card. And finally, let's say you've done your reports, the teachers have done their checks on everything, everybody's happy, the school is okay, and they're now ready to let the parents see. You would enable this button to allow the students and the parents to see their reports, right? Let's click save. Let me actually, yeah, okay. Let's click save. And then, that's pretty much it to configuring a report. But how do you see the configurations you put in? Well, there's one small caveat. I mentioned the comments. So let's talk about how the comments are built. You go to the reports module on the left, you click on comments, and you'll see a comment list here. To add a comment, we have this thing called code, right? And the code, if you don't want to break down your comments into different types, you can just always call your code general, right? There's a type here. We have subject teacher, that's for a specific subject. We have class teacher for classes, and then we have grade coordinator, right? And those are the different type of like pre-filled comments that you can create. Now, I mentioned the code, and I said if it's just normal, you just want one list of comments, you can just create it as general. But the system actually allows you to break down your comments even more than that. So for example, if I wanted to just have a set of comments that are relevant only to Spanish, then I could create a Spanish comment. In fact, I've already done it there, so let me not do that. And then let me put subject teacher, and let's say satisfactory performance this term, right? Add that in, you'll see that I already made a satisfactory performance. Good job. Let's change that to excellent performance this term. You'll see that my comment is there, but I also created one and I gave it the code Spanish just so that you guys can see it in the reports when we get there. So create different type of comments. You can add them against your subject teacher. You can add them for the class teacher, so the overall class comments are a specific subject, and then you can add them for grade coordinators, right? So once all that groundwork is done and the reports are configured and the assessments are created and assigned to a classroom or a subject, and the assignment categories were all set when you created the assignments in your grade book or whatever, right? Everything is done. You get to the end of the term. Well, gone are the days where you have to stress about a bunch of different things at the end of the term, where you have to worry about creating basically like these curated reports that you have to sit down and calculate weights in like an Excel sheet or maybe even by hand. And then, if you decide to drop an assignment, you have to go back to the drawing board. You have to update your formulas in Excel, or you have to go back and recalculate everything by hand. No, things get a lot simpler now. When you get to the end of the term, we've already covered in the gradebooks part that you can always turn off an assignment from being captured against the report cards. You can configure things very easily there. You get to the end of the term, you look at this coursework tab, you see grades are already in, things are looking good, they're already set, right? You go to the final grades tab, you see that's okay, the coursework grade is being calculated based on what was already entered, right? But maybe I need to capture my term exam grade, right? I click on the three dots here, I click on edit grades, of course the teacher would be doing it, and I enter the overall exam grade, right? And I have a pencil icon here. I click on the pencil icon and I'll see my comment builder. So as I mentioned, we have a preform comment box. I can type whatever I wanted to, or I can choose from the drop down and I say, okay, excellent performance this term. I should have formatted this to have a full stop at the end and a space, because then I could just do that and click that, right? But I can tweak it. I just tweaked it in front of you. We'll go ahead and do that, and we click save. We see the grades updated. We click save up here. You see the grades are there. This is being calculated, I guess, based on like a 50-50 weight, right? And those are my grades. And I talked about the grade submission tool. You see that was on. So right now there's no grade submitted yet. But let's say I got through all my grades and I was happy for things. I go ahead and I click submit grades. And then those grades are submitted, right? And I can do that across all my subjects. So really and truly, I get to the end of the term, my coursework grade already being calculated because I entered my assignments, I created some in the system that were auto-graded, I created some, maybe I handed them out in class or whatever, and I created a placeholder in the system, just added the name of the assignment and the points and whatever, added the grade, whatever. My coursework grade is being calculated already. I get to the end of the term, that's done. I don't have to sit down and do anything unless I decide to drop us an assignment or something, right? In which case I'll just go into the assignment settings and turn it from, including grade to not including grade in the settings, right? For that specific assignment. Worst case scenario, I might have to come back here and click recalculate grades, but chances are you won't. It will update automatically, right? I get to the final grades tab. I have my coursework already. Maybe I already gave my final exams like a week before grades were due. So those are already in, maybe not, right? Maybe I have to add them in now. So I add that in. I add in my final comments. Those things kind of just depend on how the school operates and the kind of timelines we're working with. Because I know with our pilot period, we had some schools that were working with very, very tight deadlines to get reports out. So maybe, coursework will be done either way, but the term exam grade you're entering right before reports go out. And so you enter that, you add in your comments. You don't have to worry about attendance and behavior stuff. That's all being captured in the system, right? You come to your subject assessments. You see that your subject assessment, we added one for Spanish. That needs to be captured. You click edit. Maybe you did this already, maybe you didn't. And you capture things for everybody, right? You click save. All right, you can do it by class or you can do it by student if you wanted to. You go to the student assessments, and we added one for grade 1 just now. So you'll see how that looks. We have behavioral development here. We had some for social skills, we have some for behavioral development. Let's click edit. We'll go in here. Let's say always. Let's say sometimes. Let's say clearly. These are the things we created. So we can just add it in, right? Whatever it is, we'll just have all of that in, and once it's done, we can click save, right? Now I did that across the class, but I could actually do it by student. So I pick a student and I see all their assessments and I can start grading them and pick whatever they need to be, right? So either way works. We'll go to the report summary. So really and truly, we get to the end of the term. Coursework was already captured. We entered final grade exam and a comment, right? We'll go to these assessments. Chances are we already did those, but maybe we're the kind of school that do that right before reports. So we added those in, right? We pick report summary. We look at the student. We see our breakdown of the student, right? The form teacher has a chance to enter their comment there. So the class teacher, in primary level terminology, they can edit or add in their comments. They have their own set of comments that they can capture. The grade coordinators enter their comments, the principals enter their comments, if you have those options, right? These are configurable as we showed in the reports configuration, so you can turn things on or off, right? We take a look at the attendance, which was captured. We see the groups. I added the student to football, so they show up here, and I made them a prefect and a head boy, so that showed up there. And I see the grades there, and I see some breakdown for the grades there, right? And we'll go through and everything gets captured. We'll just do our quick checks. Maybe the teachers do a check and then they say, admin, we're good to go. Reports can go on. The admin does a cursory check. Maybe they pick one student each class or something, and they do a check and they capture everything, and all of that is in. They just go through and run through and say, okay, yeah, man, we look okay here. I want to go ahead and generate a report. Let me choose a student here. Let's see. All right, so they have some stuff in. I click generate report. It generates the report immediately, right? Anything that will capture for the students. I didn't show the behavior module, but I added a detention for the student and so that showed up there, and all the grades and everything show up there. Let me go over to my grade 1. I didn't really configure my subject strands too much, but I generated some stuff, and so the grades would show up there, and all the assessments we captured would show up there, and I'd see some final percentages, and the additional notes are there, the disclaimer is there, right? Name of the teacher, principal, the subject teacher name, the comments that were added in, everything kind of gets captured. I didn't add in some of my subjects here. Let's make sure everything is right. Yeah, so the math subject that I actually edited the grade for isn't added in this class, but the things that you did enter, all of that will show up, and you can capture that against a student and it would display. So let's, just for argument's sake, let's come in here. Let's see mathematics grade 2. Let me just quickly edit some grades so you guys can see what it looks like. Add it in, right? Let's give this student a 9, right? So that's saved. And then let's go back over to report card. So the student has a math grade. Let's go in here. Let's click edit grades, their final exam. Let's say it's 89 and they're coming to us. Oh, whoops, I typed 90. I said 89 and typed 90. Excellent performance this term. Add that in. Let's change this to 89. We'll click save. So, the grade's in and the teacher actually submitted the grade and that was all good. We go to the assessments. I don't think we have anything for grade 2, so no subject assessment needed. Oh, we didn't add an assessment for the classroom either. So let me just come back here, go to the classroom, add in an assessment. It says social skills, add that. Right, so you're actually seeing a report build in real time, right? So the configurations and everything were done, and I'm just adding the relevant pieces in. Add those in, click save, go to the report summary, go to grade 2, pick the student. I think I did my stuff for Anella. She only has one subject, and I click generate report, and we see that her mathematics grade shows up. The percentages are there, the comments are there, the teacher is there, the assessments are there, right? I didn't do a class teacher comment, so let's say, oh, look at the report. I didn't like the class teacher comment. So good overall performance this term. She is opening up more, something like that, right? I click add and then principal. I'm very proud of progress, right? I think I had principal comments also enabled. Let's add that in. So you're seeing everything in real time, right? You add things in, you can click generate, you can see those things pop in and you can see the grades adjust. And, I didn't put her any clubs or give her any badges. So I come down here and I say, okay, maybe she is in football as well, right? I will add that in. And maybe she was a prefect, right? And we'll add that in. Definitely can't make her head boy. We'll come in, we'll start seeing those things, prefect, football, those kind of things pop up. So that's the power of the system. You make sure everything's captured and you have some time to review reports. You can see build as you go along. And once you're happy with it, you go back over to the report configurations, right? And you click allow students and parents to see reports, and you click save. And then the parents and students should, by the end of the term, every student and parent should have their login already. So they just log into the system and see it. We haven't covered the notification module, but you go to the notification module and you send out a notification probably to all parents, right? And say reports are ready for viewing, right? And then you say, please call if you have any questions, right? Or something like that, right? Something maybe more substantial than that. Then you click send. Once you click send, that notification gets created and all the parents, because I chose parent types, they get the notification, right? If their email is in the system, then they, I believe, will get an email notification as well. If not, once they log into the system and go to communications module, they'll see the notification. So they'll say, oh, our reports are ready. All right, cool. I'm go to reports module as a parent and I can see my child's report, right? They won't see all these tabs or anything. They would just see the report and just see a print button, and then they can print it. And it's as easy as that, right? So we look forward to seeing everybody engage with that. Sorry, the first video didn't get recorded, but I'm going to send this one as soon as possible. And yeah, once we get attendance and once we get report generation done, of course, please let me know if any other questions come up. And there are some of the modules we're seeing some schools getting really engaged and wanting to take on things like the departments module and the calendars and all of that. And all of that will come too. we have to kind of streamline the things we focus on so people aren't overwhelmed. And then we'll add in some of this other stuff and we'll do little training sessions on that as we get there. All right. So thanks again, everybody, for your patience. I'm going to stop recording now. And, if any questions come up, let me know.